Hi everybody, this is Miss Corey. Today we're going to do U10-L6, Intro to the Incas. So your learning target is to analyze the factors that led to the emergence and expansion of the multi-ethnic Aztec and Inca empires in the Americas. Your job, like always, is questions I'll ask you during the video today will be in blue text. Follow along with your study guide, and important concepts on the study guide will be in red text. If you have any questions, feel free to email me or come to office hours, which are Thursday and Friday, 12 to 1. So my first question to you is, what do you know about the Inca Empire? So there might be a few things that come to your mind. For example, you might think of like Spanish conquistadors, which we'll touch on at the very end of the slideshow today. If you were with me last semester, you might think of Quipu, or you might think of Inca emperors. We'll talk about him a little later on. Maybe you think about Inca temples. So here's the ruins of the Sun Temple at Machu Picchu. Or maybe you think of some of the great cities such as Machu Picchu. So here's kind of just the timeline of where we are at. So before this, we talked about the Maya, and then we also talked about the Aztec. So Maya and Aztec were in North America, primarily in like the Mexico, Guatemala region. Now we're talking about the Inca, and they're in Peru. So they're going to overlap a little bit with the Aztecs, but they are on two very opposite, not opposite ends, but they're thousands of miles apart, because Inca is in South America, Aztecs are in North America, and the Inca Empire was approximately from 1438 to 1533. It depends on the historian you ask of when the Inca Empire ended, just because of Spanish conquest. So, Inca. They were around from 1438 to 1533, and they ruled from northern to southern Andes Mountains. I'll show you a map in a few slides. Today, this would include parts of countries including modern-day Peru, Chile, Ecuador, Bolivia, Argentina, and Colombia. And Inca can also be spelled Inca with a K. So here's a map. You can see here just the vast expansion of the Inca Empire. So you can see it goes up right to the southern part of Colombia, and then it goes all the way down through Chile and Argentina. So Inca, by 1525, the Inca Empire had a population of approximately 6 million. Some historians kind of lean that towards more like 10 million. They were primarily pastoralists. So they raised primarily llamas and alpacas. And the reason why llamas and alpacas were so important to them, it not only provided food, but also clothing and transportation. So you have to remember, in North and South America, there were no horses or camels or donkeys or cows before the Europeans arrived. So that is why llamas and alpacas are so important, because they are the only packed animal. They also gained power and land through military strength and trade routes. So the more llamas and alpacas a city or the Inca Empire had, that meant the more trade. The more trade meant more prosperity. That made more, or that brought in more people, and more people made a stronger military. And they also farmed things like corn, cotton, quinoa, and potatoes. As you can see here on the ceramic thing right here, that's an ear of corn, and ceramic corn, of course. All right, so let's talk about Mita. So what it is a labor for building large cities and road projects relied on Mita. And Mita is a labor draft of commoners. So religious cults, royals, and aristocrats owned the land. And the government would draft male commoners to farm the land, raise and herd alpacas and llamas, make artisan goods, and to do building projects. In Mita, these men who were drafted could also serve as soldiers, craftsmen, and runners that carried messages across the roads. So, Some of the government building projects through MITA included things like building and managing roads, which I'll show you a picture of later, bridges, temples, of course, palaces for the rich, irrigation canals, which is important for farming, and also artisan projects, including textiles, which would be like wool and cotton, like you see up here. Here's a checkered tunic made during the Inca time period. And also beer was made of maize, which is corn, and coca, which is a narcotic leaf. All right, so here we see a picture of one of the irrigation canals that is still surviving today that the Inca built. You can see back here these kind of like step looking things that would have been farmland. So, Au, that is a clan of people. Most Inca civilizations were villages or small cities. They did not have large metropolises. So all land was owned by an Au. And what an AU is really close kinships, and everyone kind of in that clan of people was bonded like family. Because of that, they had an obligation to aid each other, such as building projects, food, clothing, resources, and also an obligation to give services and goods to their rulers. So that's kind of how Mita was so easy to establish because there was already that underlying like sense of obligation and responsibility for each other. All right, so due to high labor productivity, there was a big surplus of goods and also food. So the government and IU could provide for the old and the ill as well. Um, so the Inca people really did take care of everyone in their community. So each IU or community has a seventh of its male population working for the government MITA at any given time. So that once some of the male population that would get drafted would rotate, so it wasn't just like a seventh just like disappear off of the village or anything like that. It would be a rotation. So commoners built 13,000 kilometers of roads. So I'll ask you this: why are roads so important to an empire? So Inca roads were really important because not only would they carry traders, especially with llamas and alpacas, and goods, but also for military troop movements and government officials to get around to the different parts of the empire. And here is a photo of some of the Inca roads today. You can see going down that cliff would be kind of difficult. So that's why they built roads, kind of zigzagging back and forth. All right, Cusco. That is the capital city of the Inca Empire. Today, it is in modern day Peru. So you can see here on the map, here's Cusco. Here's Lima, which is today's capital of Peru. It was at the height of the Inca power, which is approximately 1530. It only had a population of 30,000. And remember, they had it somewhere between 6 million to 10 million people. And that's compared to the Aztecs up in Mexico, who had a population of about 150,000 in their capital city. So, Cusco is really known for beautiful buildings carved by stone masons. They're finely cut stones that fit perfectly together, so there's no mortar to stick the stones together. They're just so perfectly cut, they make a solid wall. The city was also laid out in the shape of a puma, which is a really sacred animal. They also had a major temple called the Temple of the Sun. It was really famous because it was lined with gold on the interior, because gold was seen to be like kind of like part of the sun because they're the same color and they're shiny. And also golden statues of llamas and corn. But sadly, like a lot of things, the Spanish did come and take all the goods out of the temple and pretty much destroy the city. All right, so for my students last semester, who remembers what Quipu was or is? For those of you who are not with me, just take your best guess at it. Here's a picture of it up here if you want to try to take a guess. All right, quipu. That is cores of cotton dyed and tied into knots. And those knots represent a way of record keeping. So it's still really unknown today of what the colors mean, what the knots, different kinds of knots mean, and what the positioning means. It's really kind of a great mystery. But depending on the color and the type of knot and the position, it would mean different things. But historians are still trying to figure out what exactly that is. All right, so Quechua. Quechua is the languages of the Incas. It is still spoken today. There are multiple hundreds of dialects during the Inca Empire and still today of Quechua. When the Spanish came, Quechua speaking people were forced by the Catholic Church to go into forced labor, especially farming unfamiliar crops that the Spanish brought over with them, handing over all of their food supplies to the Spanish, and also they had to become Catholic. All right, so Machu Picchu, that literally means old peak in Quechua. What it is, it's this Inca city that was populated between the mid 1400s and mid 1500s, and it was located between two mountain peaks in Peru. So you can see here in the map, that's where Machu Picchu is. It is really famous because it is still completely intact. I know it's a huge tourist destination. It had terraced farmland, which makes it kind of unique, especially at such a high elevation. On that terraced farmland, they grew things like sweet potatoes and corn. It also included plazas, temples, houses, and even a cemetery. It was thought to be the capital city of an Incan emperor. We'll talk about him in like a slide or two. The reason why the Machu Picchu became so famous and why it's completely intact is because it was actually unknown to the Spanish. So when the Spanish came, they pretty much destroyed all the cities the Inca had. But this one was so high up and so hidden, it was left untouched. It was abandoned in the mid 1500s. It is unknown why, but it might be because of the lack of water. So here's a picture of Machu Picchu. You can still see all the houses and buildings. And then you can also see how it's kind of layered like steps. So that would be terrace farming. So Pachacuti. He was an Inca emperor. He ruled from 1438 to 1471. His father was also an emperor, so he was kind of passed down the role, but in kind of a unique way. There's a lot of information about Pachacuti. This is like the bare basics of it. So his father appointed his other son, actually, called Inca Urcon, and others thought that Pachacuti would be the better of the emperor. So there's a kind of like the empire splits into half of who they think the emperor should be. A whole civil war breaks out. Super long story short, Pachacuti is victorious. So during his time, he expanded his reign into southern Peru, northern Ecuador. He did a lot of public work expansion, especially with channeling rivers and leveling the valley floor and also building agricultural terraces. And Machu Picchu is believed to be built for him, but historians still debate that one today. So you can see here, this is at the very extent of the Inca Empire. But Pachacuti really contribute to land kind of in this upper half. All right, so as I kind of alluded to before, the Spanish come. And they ruin everything. So in 1532, the Spanish conquistadors came to Peru. This group of conquistadors was led by Francisco Pizarro. So he came about 50 years after the civil war between Pachacuti and his brother. Even though it was quite a few decades afterwards, it still really weakened and divided the Inca Empire. So in the video that you're going to watch next lesson, you will learn a bit more about the Spanish and their superior weapons and how they were able to conquer the Inca. But one of the big reasons is because some rival tribes to the Inca were like, hey, the Spanish are super powerful. Let's go team up with them to go defeat the Inca. And that's one of the very big reasons why the Spanish were so successful, because the group of Spaniards at that time only consisted of about 200 or so conquistadors. So those rival tribes to the Inca that teamed up with the Spanish really boosted their numbers. And then through warfare and disease, the Spanish and their allies defeated the Incas. So by 1572, the Incan Empire has fallen. So once between 6 to 10 million people now came under Spanish rule. During the conflict itself, only about 7,000 Incas actually died of war conflict. I mean, that's still a big number, but not crazy. But what's even more crazy is that 0 Spaniards died during all of this. They survived. Um, so about 20 to 25% of the Inca population died of disease after the Spanish came to. This is very, very debated topic among historians of how approximately what kind of number or percentage of people died because of things like smallpox. But the textbook source that I use said about 20 to 25%. All right, so in your study guide, in 4 bullet points or sentences, write a summary for the Inca Empire. All right, so in this lesson, we learned about the Inca Empire, Mita, Ayu, Inca roads, Cuzco, Quechua, Machu Picchu, Quipu, and Pachacuti. So next up, you're going to watch U10-L6, which is the Great Inca Rebellion. So I was watching this video, and I'm like, ooh, they probably don't want to watch a whole 50-minute video. So I skip over the first 20 minutes of the video. And during those 20 minutes of the video, the archaeologists and forensic scientists found evidence in this graveyard that's in Peru that an Inca native was shot by a Spanish bullet. And this is now the first found Inca native to die from a gunshot wound in the New World. So that's pretty much the entire 20 minutes of it. And you will be watching the last 25 minutes or so of the video. I believe it is a Nova video from PBS. So those are always pretty entertaining to watch. All right, as always, if you have any questions, let me know. Bye.